We believe that collaborative conversations will lead to better outcomes in the world of mental health. Welcome to the Lift and Make Lighter podcast.
Welcome to Lift and Make Lighter. I'm Tom Telford here with Arden Smith. We are in Southern Utah studio, which is a first. We've not done this before, but yeah, we're going live in Southern Utah in St. George, and we actually have a special guest. But before Arden introduces our guest today, I just want to mention LÉVO is committed to a number of things, but one of them is what we call the 5 intersections of mental health. And so when we speak about LÉVO being in Latin, for lift and make lighter, these 5 key intersections we feel like are difference makers in the lives of Utahns and the people that we strive to serve. Those 5 intersections are family, friends, education, and employer, hence education today, where we're going to talk about that, civic, religious, and then our community. And LÉVO is opening our 5th office in St. George here shortly. We're kicking it off, and part of the reason we want to be in St. George is because community is a big part of Utah, actually. The number of Northern Utahns that spend their holidays and weekends, which you don't like, Justin,
It's all good.
the ballooning of the St. George community. But St. George is beloved to all Utahns, and yet there are many Utahns who call it home, and LÉVO wants to be here, and that's part of, our commitment to these 5 intersections. So today, as we think at LÉVO about education and a key cornerstone of people's mental health, my own mental health story personally starts in school. So maybe I'll mention a little bit about that today as we dive in. But on one hand, school is the direct source of my trauma, and it's actually part of changing my stars. So I had a couple teachers growing up who they just made all the difference in my self-esteem, self-confidence, self-worth, how I started to see myself as not being born stupid, but actually, just born different. So having said all of that, education is top of mind as we dive in today. So Arden, do you want to introduce our guest?
Absolutely. This is Justin Keate. Known Justin. We were dance dads together for a long time.
Go dance dads.
His daughter and my stepdaughter, wonderful dancers. It was fun to watch them in competitive dance and then into high school, and they actually won state.
That's right.
But Justin is a principal. We met him when he was a vice principal at Desert Hills High School, and was immediately impressed. We were just launching Life Launch Centers, and Justin, his whole focus was, how do I help not just the kids, but how do I help my staff be better at this, and not just saying this is a problem kid, I'm done, but how do we arm them? And then we got to know Justin that way, but then Justin became the principal and went through a rough time when there was a rash of suicide attempts, and Justin's one that when he knows something's right, he's not going to wait for permission. He's just going to jump in and do it. And so he asked us, he says, hey, will you help us do some parent education nights? And started out small.
Yeah.
But, man, Justin stayed with it, had us there several times, involved some of the other community members, and built something that, honestly, the district hasn't been able to replicate yet.
Yeah.
He did it right. He had some good people. He loves this community. Yeah. He loves his staff, and he loves the kids that he teaches. I wish I'd have had a principal like him. But yeah, this is Justin.
That's nice. Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, Arden. I appreciate that. I'm happy to be here. So looking forward to the chat today.
Tell us about, just to dive in, Justin, give us your, concise philosophy regarding education.
Yeah, that's a great. I think I've been in education 24 years now. I was a teacher for 8 years. was an assistant principal for 8 years, and then I've been the principal. This is my 6th year as a principal. And one thing that's constant is that in education is just change. But one thing that never changes is, man, if you're going to get into this line of work, you better love working with kids. And so if you don't love working with kids, then go do something different. And I love working with kids. They're the reason you show up. They're your why. And it's fun. It's challenging. It's different. It's changing. The job, I've seen a lot of changes through being a teacher and even as a vice principal, and in the last 10 years through COVID and some of the online and AI things that we're dealing with now. But it's always a blessing to just keep working with kids. They amaze me all the time. They're super talented. I feel like, very prepared for the world. We try to pretend to prepare them for the next thing sometimes. And I don't know what the next thing is sometimes. It's hard to predict what the world's going to look like in 5 or 10 years, but we lean into their strengths. And it's such a fun and challenging area to work in and be part of. So, I think if you see everything through a lens of just what's best for this kid, and that's your guiding principle, then you're never going to be wrong. And whatever that is, it doesn't matter, whatever that is. So you have to have that at the front of everything. I think that has to be your kind of mission, your driving force. So
yeah,
Justin's adopted this saying with education, and I'll let you finish it. But if somebody doesn't understand math, we teach them math.
All right.
Finish that.
Right. If somebody doesn't understand, so I used to say this all the time when I was an assistant principal, especially because I dealt with behaviors mostly then, right? Still do a little bit, but if they don't know math, we teach them math. They can't read, we teach them how to read. If they don't know how to behave, we
kick them out of school,
punish them. Yeah, we give them consequences. And that's not right. It's okay to have a consequence for some things, but we have to teach them better. And he's kind of realized that when I was working as an assistant principal with behaviors that were coming at me. Saw parents unsure what to do, very frustrated. Kids, a behavior is just a symptom of something, right? I once heard something to the effect of the only difference between your worst behaved kids at school and your best behaved kids, or the best behaved kids had some fundamental needs met before they got to school that day, and your worst behaved kids did not. And they may need that there. They may get it there, hopefully. And that's it. It's a little bit back to maybe what you were talking about, right? It has to be first and foremost a safe place for kids. We actually redid our mission statement. When I became the principal, I was looking at our mission statement, because being in leadership, you take a look and you go, okay, like what's the mission here? What are we trying to accomplish? And our mission statement was okay. It was a lot of adult fancy words of, integrity and lifelong learners. And I was just like, kids look at that and go, whatever, right? That's just
totally.
It's garbage, right? There was not, so we went to work and got our community council, our PTA kids, and really just, I wanted it simple. And what do we do here? What are we about, right? And we came up with, we call ourselves Thunder Family. We're Desert Hills Thunder, Thor mascot. I mean, it's to get cooler than that, guys, right? I mean, Thor's your mascot. Come on. There's a giant Thor's hammer in the school when you walk in. It's freaking awesome. It's as good as it gets. So
their entrance music is Thunderstruck.
Yeah,
so
you got the built-in song. Like, it's legit. I've actually filmed opposing coaches that come play us when we play the song again. They're rocking out over there. I'm like, yeah, you like it too. It's
playing into
you
it.
Cannot. Yeah, you have to dig it. So, but so we call ourselves Thunder Family. That's been a big part of our culture. We want kids to feel like you're part of something here. So, our new mission statement says, our Thunder Family is committed to student learning. That's what schools are there for, to help kids learn. And not teaching necessarily. You can teach a lot of stuff, but if kids aren't learning, then it doesn't really matter what you're teaching, right? But there's a difference between teaching and making sure that they learn something. And the second part of the mission statement says, and ensuring that every student knows they belong. And that's a big deal to me. We want to make sure kids feel like they belong to something. And honestly, if I could go back, I would probably reverse those. I'd probably say, we're committed to helping kids feel like they belong so then they can come and learn. I'm a big believer in if you can check those boxes, kind of that, think of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs for people, right? Where your basic needs kind of have to be met to survive. Kids have that coming through the door every day, at schools. And, I'm sure you guys can relate to this. Like you walk in school and it's like, you need to ask them. And we do sometimes. What do they need in high school? They want to feel like they belong to something, that this is a safe place, that they've got friends. That's all they care about, right? And if they know that this school sees them, there's some programs or things in place where we can pick them up on their worst day and build them up and help them out no matter what. And they know they belong. I really believe then they'll open up to learning. Then you can teach them. You can teach them and they can learn math. They can learn whatever. But if you have a kid sitting in math class, I'll try to not pick on math a lot, but that seems to be the class they struggle with a lot there. But if any class they're sitting in, if they're sitting there and their amygdala's blowing up, right? And they're stressing out and they're worried about, there's no way they're learning. There's just no way that they're learning, right? Schools have to make sure that there are programs, systems in place at school where kids know they belong, know that they're safe, and know that we see you and we've got you. And then you can educate the student. I just think it has to be that way. And that seems to be the best formula for us that we've seen so far. And teachers aren't that different. They want to feel that way at work too, right? They want to come to work and know, hey, these guys got my back here and I can do what I need to do. That's a big important part of my job too, is we hire teachers and try to take care of them to help them help kids, because education right now is a challenging field. Things are changing a lot, and there's some big challenges there.
Yeah. There's so much that you just described.
I know.
In brilliant. I mean, it is so good. I'm curious, how many students and faculty total are at the school?
Yeah, so we have about 1,250 students, 10, 11, 12th grade.
Yeah.
About 400 kids per class, give or take a little. There's 48 teachers and another 40 to 50 support staff, secretaries, counselors. Yeah. We have 4 counselors, custodians, aides, people that help out, about 50 teachers.
Yeah.
So, it's good size high school.
Yeah. I mean, you're running a 1,300 person company.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're the CEO.
Like that. Yeah.
And yet you've dispelled it to some pretty simple and clear, objectives and mission. I've never heard a principal describe safety in order to learn.
Yeah. I think and I didn't either getting into education, honestly. That didn't really come up much. I think it was just through years of being a vice principal and dealing with just some tough situations with families. I'm like, man, like these kids just want to come here and feel safe, feel part of things, feel like they're seen and we've got you. And I got so tired of reacting to that. And I remember calling Arden and Ben, for some help with some pretty heavy things. We had our first few months as a new principal, we had 2 student suicides just kind of right out the gate. And I was like, I'm not super prepared for this, right? And because it's just like, you're the principal, go. There's some training and whatever, right? But it's like, there's some situations, we kind of joke as principals all the time that everything feels like a first. I haven't seen this yet, or this hasn't happened yet. And you just go to work, but you're working with kids. And I remember feeling, I'm so tired of being reactive to things. I want to be proactive with things. And we can be proactive with things. And, you can look at different statistics with mental health and different things and kind of predict what you're up against a little bit, right? That's not too difficult. I'm working with 15 to 18-year-olds. Like I kind of understand what I'm going to see day to day here, but I thought there is, why not go proactive? Why not make sure you have programs in place. I mean, my poor staff, I love to pilot things, and we're trying this and we're doing, and I always tell them, hey, something is something and nothing is nothing, right? If we try something and it works and it reaches this kid and it helps this kid, it's good. And if it doesn't, then so what? We're no worse off, right?
Yeah.
So, we opened we were one of the earlier high schools to have a full functioning wellness room that is up in a separate room in our library, and really made that a community effort to come in and had professionals come in and volunteer their time I want to make this is the purpose of this room. I want to make it awesome. And what's the right color and what do they need here? And so that was really cool. And this year they just opened teen centers in all of our schools where kids can come and get food and supplies and take a time out if they need a time out, and a lot of like clothes, and they can do their laundry there. And it started being used the second day it was open, right? Like immediately. And it was fun to get the kids involved in that. I had the interior design kids at our school design it and, do all the stuff that you see. So it was very, very much a community effort there. But yeah, you have to pay attention to some of those things. And I think that helps kids. The last thing I want is a kid just shows up to school, goes to class, goes through the motions and goes home. That's not going to work, right? It's not enough. So I think schools can be proactive, and it's been fun to try things, to do whatever we could. These parent nights that we got going, it was so awesome to reach out to local professionals and say, hey, can you come help us? Can you help my parents and help me, as a leader in the community, be better, be more proactive? What's the right thing to help them with in these situations? And our first parent night after some of those suicides, we just thought, let's get together and just educate the community on how to help their kids, what to look for. And these guys were all over. I mean, they were on it, right? Ben and Arden came in and was just like, great, let's go. And our first meeting was 15 parents there. And that was a win for me. I didn't even care. I was just like, 2 people showed up, right? I was like, yes. Because for these 15 people, that was a big deal, right? And some of them brought their kids, right? Yep. And man, they talked. It was awesome. It was awesome. And we kept those going monthly for a while. I think the biggest one we had was close to 100 people.
Oh, we ended up over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was over 100. That last one, when we did it, it ended up at Snow Canyon. The next year, there was 180.
Yeah, we started moving different schools, and we thought, let's start inviting all the other schools and reaching out. And and it wasn't just Ben and Arden too. They were kind of our frequent flyers, but we had other professionals around the community come and tackle different topics every month, and it was great. Up till COVID, we were really rolling with that. That kind of shut it off, and our districts picked it up and kind of tried to keep it going. It's been okay, but they're still trying though. At least it's something. So it's a good effort in the right direction to try to help educate the community. But I think you don't think about those things always when you go into education, but you have to check some of those boxes for kids, and they have to feel like they belong to something. And then I think they can enjoy themselves. They can be involved in high school like we expect and want them to be. And honestly, they'll open up to learning. That's why we redid that mission statement. For me, it spoke more to who we are and what we do. We're here to help kids learn, and they better feel like they belong in your classroom. Because all of us have had a teacher. I could probably ask you, and you could tell me a story of a teacher who, you alluded to that already, who did that for you, who you had a personal connection with, where you're like, they lit a fire in me, and I felt like I could do this, could get through this or whatever. So kids are carrying heavy stuff now. I mean, you just never know. So
I want to talk about some principles that you alluded to there, because if you go back to some of your description, you were talking about early in your career that you are seeing behavior, and a behavior is just a symptom of something that broader is going on. It's the behavior is not the root cause. They're behaving in such a way because there's a cause, right? And that is really top of mind for LÉVO in the way that we approach primary mental health care. People will, often ask, why does LÉVO do what they do this way? And the answer is because healthcare is so focused on symptoms, and you can throw medication at it, you can throw a treatment at it, and yet you're not going to have any different outcomes. You're still going to have
It's band-aiding the problem, right?
Yeah. I mean, the root cause is the challenge. And so, you saw behavior, you saw the symptom, and you, instead of just addressing symptoms, you decided to go to the root cause, which was, if we create belonging, if we create a culture of mattering to these kids, they will come and they will feel safe, and then they can learn.
Yes.
The environment will create, right, the ability for them to learn. And so, I mean, when I go back in my own childhood, I'm hearing you and I'm going, this is literally, a godsend. Justin is a godsend to do what he's doing, because I think that there's so much fatigue in education. Yeah. There literally is just exhaustion, because every day, if you think of 1,200 kids, you got to think that there's going to be 2 to 3% who are just going through some major behavioral stuff every day.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is 50. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you had 50 Tommies, me, I mean, that's a challenge, and so bless the educators and the, administrators who can really show up and to be creative problem solvers.
Yeah.
I mean, my teacher at 4th grade, Mrs. Campbell, my name was on the board by 10 a.m. every day. Maybe a couple check marks by lunch recess.
Oh no!
Yeah,
public shaming.
Yeah, I was the guy.
Got you.
Well, one day Mrs. Campbell calls me up. Tommy, stay after. Everyone's going to go to first recess. You stay after. And I'm like, So I stay after, and she's like, hey, come up to my desk. I go up. I'm almost in tears. Are you going to call my mom? Like, is this going to be another time that she calls my mom? And she's like, no, we're going to make a deal. And I'm like, okay, whatever. She says, if you come to class and you get all your stuff done and you stay on task and you stop flirting and you stop bugging the other kids, at the end of school, when everybody comes back in after last recess, you can stay outside until the end of the day. Mm-hmm. You can't leave the school grounds, but you can stay and play. So she cued into that. My, motive was not learning. My motive was being outside, and she tied my behavior to a reward.
Yeah.
She tied into what was the root cause. Well, the root cause was I couldn't sit still. I just couldn't sit still in a classroom all day. So she figured out how to address the behavior by really looking at the root cause, which was my inability to sit still and focus. And so when I hear educators doing what you're doing, you're changing the stars of so many kids, and they're punks, right? I was such a punk.
Oh, they're great.
I was such a punk, and yet I realized that it was teachers who started to see the kids.
Yeah.
They're just kids trying to cope with, like you said. I mean, there are kids who still arrive in Utah, in St. George, Utah, where we don't see a bunch of homelessness, but there are kids who go to school every day who are hungry,
absolutely,
who are abused, who are parents who are here under crazy circumstances. There's a lot right in our own families and neighborhoods that are really struggling, yet they may have all the cool clothes on with an iPhone, and no one has any idea that that kid is in a bad place, And so when you speak of safety and the ability to create a culture and an environment where kids can come and feel okay and to learn, even if they're not straight A's, 32 on the ACT, but if they're just there and a little bit is dripping in, the ability for them to change their stars with a little bit of knowledge and education, I mean, that's literally what changed me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a significant influence at scale. 1,200 now. Not all are struggling, but when I think about LÉVO's commitment to education and why, this is why. Yeah. There are so many kids whose mental health is struggling, whether they're from a great family or not a great family, but education is a stressor by definition, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Education is growth. It's forced growth. You got to put more information in to try to retain it so you can utilize it. Well, stressor environments create this really unique environment where you grow and you learn, but it's also a stressor where you feel overwhelmed. I don't know if I can learn it, do it. I'm asked to sit quiet in a chair. So education becomes an really crazy environment for development. And that's where you start to see mental health surface. It could be ADHD, anxiety, depression. It could be autism. It could be a number of things. But education is that intersection, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, your teachers, your staff, your people, you're likely seeing into the mental health of the child more so than even families.
Yeah.
So can you speak to that, of just what the unique lens that you have because of the environment of growth and learning, and how that surfaces those stressors?
Yeah, it's true. I think you have to be really careful too, not to, and bless your teacher too, to not have you feel like your identity was attached to your behavior, right? Like kids, they just label each other, and they pick up on these. Oh, I'm not smart. I can't do math. I'm not this. I'm never gonna. No. Like, you can't do that yet, right? You got to have this growth mindset of like, okay, there's some struggle in education, right? You're going to have to learn. And the teachers are so good. Teachers are so good at this, where it's imagine now, these teachers they're looking at 30 kids. I got to teach these kids history. History's boring to most of them. And, I taught history. So it was like, how do I make this engaging and enjoyable for these kids, and kind of light that fire in them a little bit, right? And inspire, and just make sure that we have you kind of talked about creating the right environment. It's like a gardener, right? It's if you create the right environment, then life will thrive in your classroom. And good teachers understand that. And it's not, you cannot label the kids. You can't be sarcastic with them. You have to be really careful with that. Kids nowadays have options too, and especially at high school, they all have a car out in the parking lot. So they'll just leave. And we've had kids, teacher will say something, oh, nice to have you grace us with your presence or something today, when they walk in late and they're like having a bad day, whatever's going on. I don't need this. They'll just leave. Or they'll go online. You can take classes online. They'll go online. They have endless options now. And that's a challenge. A big challenge in education right now is all of the options. And
Meaning what?
so there's a multitude of ways to earn credit and get to a diploma. So there's kind of this shift in education where there's a lot of options. First of all, there's homeschool, there's alternative schools, there's hybrid schools, there's online all the way. There's online some classes and some at school. You can go to school, you can go to that school, you can go to this school. So there's just so many options now for kids to earn credits to graduate. And one of the biggest challenges there is you don't have to come to school to get content anymore, to get information. They're carrying the answer to everything around in their pocket. They can get, and probably too much information. The challenge is really maybe sifting through that information and gleaning the good things that come out of that, because there's so much there to distract them or to pull them away from an education. And honestly, gaining wisdom or mastery, it takes work and it's hard, but that's why it's so special. No one can take it from you. No one can earn it for you. So when you work hard, I love seeing students, just like we did our Sterling Scholars recently, and they go compete in this, fields of science and math. And these kids are so brilliant and they're so smart because they've really pushed themselves and done a lot of work for mastery. And that's a rare thing, because it's so easy now to pick up information or get through. Kids can go online and in a handful of hours, in some circumstances, can pick up a quarter semester credit. It's crazy, right? And I don't think that's real. That's regurgitating information for me. It's not just our content. It's not real learning, right? So one of the questions we're always asking ourselves is, what are we inviting kids to here at school that they can't get online and the AI can't do for them? Because that's a challenge too. You now have kids growing up very, very proficient with AI, and it can do a lot of the thinking for them, or at least help and augment the speed and process at which they do things. I mean, we're all using it, right? I mean, I do these trainings with my teachers. I'm like, how many of you used AI this year to help you with your lesson planning, whatever? Like, every hand's in the air, right? Well, yeah, because it's more efficient, right? We're not riding the horse anymore. We're not getting a faster horse. We're jumping in the automobile now, right? Like if it was 100 years ago, right? Yeah. This automobile is way more efficient. Yeah. So I'm going to trade that for a horse. So, and it's not about getting a faster horse or whipping the dead horse, go. It's like, get in the automobile. So it's here, it's there. And that brings some challenges with it. And then online. So the question we're always asking is, what are we providing here at school, or what are we inviting kids to at school that they can't get online or that AI can't do for them? That's not an easy question to answer, but every school has to be able to speak to that or answer that. And mental health is a big part of this too. You've got to have ways to, again, systems in place, things that address that. You got to check some of those safety boxes, right? We see you, we got you here, you belong to something. But you have to provide value too, because they can get content anywhere, right? I mean, I'm getting older, but there was one computer with the internet at my high school, and the librarian had it, and she only used it to talk to other librarians or something. I don't know. Like, you still had to, no one knew, like, a pager was the cool thing, and nobody had those, right? Okay. Maybe kids that were dealing drugs or whatever was it. But it was like, so there's just so much information now. And then a challenge on top of that too is you have parents that are trying to parent kids that grew up the way we grew up, and they're trying to parent a kid that's growing up in a whole different set of circumstances where they're very AI savvy, and there's these online options, and they have all this information at their fingertips. And so it's really challenging too for parents to kind of have this crazy dichotomy right now with this shift that's happening in education, where there's all this information out there. There's endless ways that you can earn credit and get information and get learning. So how do you navigate through that? How do I parent my kids through that in a safe way at school? How do we manage that and address those behaviors and keep kids safe? And then you have the mental health aspect of what happens with some of those things with, cyberbullying or online and just social media and the issues that come along with that. And so but I think if you're going to be effective, you've got to be able to answer that question of, what are we really inviting kids to here that they can't get online or that AI can't do for them?
What's your answer?
All right, that's a good question. Honestly, it's a little complex, but I think the answer, what we've tried to focus on, and we're just having these discussions like last year and this year, I hit it hard with my teachers this year. I was like, all right, we've got to lean into this and address this. And I think it's making sure we are being very intentional about the skills and dispositions that we're teaching that can transcend and benefit them beyond high school. It's skill development, guys. It's what it is. So when I hire a teacher, I don't hire a content expert necessarily. I hired 2 history teachers last year and had almost 50 applicants for those 2 jobs. All of them were history experts. I needed the people with the skills to engage kids in learning, to create the right environment where kids can learn. I'm hiring skills, their personality, right? And so we've got to be very intentional at school about skill development, meaning when they come and sit in a science class, for example, there's content that you need to get through and learn, but beyond that, there's some specific content-related skills you're going to need to know. You're going to need to know the scientific method and but then there's these, I call them transcendent skills, or that can benefit you beyond high school, or universal skills or employability skills. And we've got to be very intentional. I think the answer is we've got to be very intentional that along with the content, you're pairing that with skill development. So we're teaching you science today. This is the goal, the learning target, what we're trying to learn. We're also doing that through an activity where we're problem solving and we're doing group work. So problem solving is a transcendent skill. Being a good, digital citizenship, communication and collaboration. Can you communicate together? I mean, I've got content experts back to hiring that had doctorate degrees or double master's degrees, and they could barely look me in the eye and pass a 15-minute interview with me. Like, I'm like, hey, right here, let's go, And I thought, these kids are going to eat them up, right? These kids are going to eat these people up. So I don't need a content expert. I need skills. I've got a teacher at our school right now. I shouldn't say this, but I got a teacher at our school right now. His background's in science, and I last minute had a teacher resign and go do a different job the week before school started. And we called him. He was coaching for us, and I said, "You ready to go in the classroom?" He'd been in the classroom 9 years, whole different subject. I said, "Do you want to?" They'd just moved here, and he was looking for a job. I said, "Kids, you're good with kids." And he's learning the content, staying a day or two ahead of the kids, and killing it. He's doing great.
Yeah,
he's the right hire there. I wasn't. So those skills that he had mattered to me, right? And I don't care if kids are going to go right now into be a brain surgeon or a diesel mechanic. It doesn't matter. If they don't have good problem solving, communication and collaboration skills, they don't know how to talk to people, they don't know how to, work through difficult situations, have some emotional resilience a little bit. I mean, statistically, they're going to have 5 or 6 different career changes in their lifetime, right? So think about the flexibility you need with problem solving, learning and unlearning things. Yeah. So really what we're trying to do is develop learners that have skill sets, because that's what you get at school now. You don't have to come to get content anymore. You can get it online. And those diploma, and then in college, it's even tougher, I think, because college is now a very expensive piece of paper with your name on it. Very, very expensive, that says, you earned credit, buddy. And you may have that very expensive piece of paper and cannot find a job if you don't have the right skills.
Yeah.
So from the diesel mechanic to the brain surgeon, those transcendent skills are going to be critical for both those types of people to succeed. And that's the value, I believe, of coming to school now. That's the answer to that question, is we have to be very intentional about the skills that we are developing, and we have to see it ourselves as developing learners, not just here's a diploma. They can get a diploma anywhere, anymore, any way they want. You can get a diploma online just quicker than you can even believe. So the content is really then the vehicle, because again, they can get content anywhere. So the content becomes the vehicle they come to school, there's the content there, but that's the vehicle to teach the content specific and the universal skills. That's the question schools are going to have to be able to answer in the next coming years, or it's going to run them over because it's coming. And that brings a whole new set of challenges to students and to parents coming to school. So skill development is a big thing. There's students at my school that make more money than the teachers do on YouTube, on TikTok, online, or whatever. We had a young lady that had a makeup channel, how to do makeup, and she was making 6 figures in high school. I have a student that texted me, said, hey, he's a family friend of ours. So he texted me because he had my number, and I was in my office and I got a text, and he said, hey, Mr. Keate, I just was going to tell you I bought a Tesla today in math class. Sent me a picture of it. And then he saw me later and he's like, oh, sold the Tesla, made 10 grand, made 12 grand, whatever. I was just like he's sitting in math class, right? And got his work done early and bought a Tesla and flipped it.
Yeah.
And he learned the skill. He learned how to do it. He's real good with people. He's actually in our community now. He's not going to college. He's making really good money, and he flips high-end cars now, and he teaches people how to do it. And he's really kind of sought after and very, very good at it. He flipped close to $5 million worth of cars his senior year. He was 17, 18 years old. Jeez. Killing it.
Yeah.
The kid had a skill, right?
Yeah.
Did he need the content at school? Some of it's good, maybe not really, but he was learning a skill. That kid was going to be successful. So there's some challenges today, and that brings kind of a host of challenges for parents and kids, because parents now, it's difficult. They're trying to navigate how to parent kids that grew up completely different than they did. And their problems are different, and how they handle it and deal with it is different. And schools are kind of having to shift to, you don't come here to get content anymore. You're going to come here to really skill develop. And I have to teach you how to be a learner. And we have to have this growth mindset where you may not know how to do this yet, but we're going to work with you and get there. Because teachers are sitting there, when I was teaching history, like 30 kids are staring at me. teach me history, Mr. Keate, let's go. And 5 of them are high ability learners and 5 of them can barely read. And this kid is allergic to everything. And this kid has, a medical issue, and this kid is diabetic, and that kid can't focus. And there's 5 kids right there that have ADD. And you really have to kind of lean into, good teachers can lean into the strengths of the student too, and really pull that out of them. Like, lean into their strengths. All right, what are you good at? Then let's do this. And let them figure out how to learn the way that they learn. Like your teacher did with you. All right, I'm going to make a deal with you then. What she was doing is paying attention to the things you were good at and making that be the issue, not the behavior she was seeing, right? So, because that behavior is just a symptom of, I can't sit still. And I'll tell teachers sometimes, I'm like, look at your schedule. Look at these kids' schedule. Would you want to sit in your class? Would you make it through the day of your kids? Or even the parents. Okay, you're mad that your kid's getting called in my office, but would you make it through a day like this? And the kid goes on math, science, and let's give the kid a PE class for crying out loud, partway between these, and solve it that way. So, yeah, it's challenging, but there's some fun things going on, and I will say schools that are teachers are so good right now, and we hire amazing people, and they are so good at what they do, and they have first and foremost that love for working with kids and seeing their potential and lighting that fire in them that's going to help them realize, hey, there's more here, and it's going to take work, and helping them navigate that learning journey, helping them be good learners. So, yeah.
Justin, I'm actually totally blown away right now sitting and listening to this, because when I think about your foresight of where you are going and who you're hiring for, I couldn't agree more. And for what it's worth, from someone who's started and sold a few companies, and where my foresight as a business owner sees the world going, I have to think in 5 to 10 years, to your point, if everybody has access to all the content, what is the differentiator?
Yeah.
And to really sink into that question. And so, I was asked on a podcast recently, this woman said, from a large university, in the state, we were sitting and she said, Tom, what is AI going to do to the business world? And, what's it going to do to education? And, all of these areas. The question was AI. Mm-hmm. And I said, imagine waking up in a world where everybody has access now to all the artificial intelligence. Yeah. And I said, really think that through. When I go there, that knowledge and information now is just a commodity. It's easy. Everybody has that. So there's no differentiation there. That's flooded. Yeah. That's diluted. What you just talked about, skill learning, in my head, what that is AI, but it is not artificial. It's authentic.
Yeah.
Authentic intelligence now becomes the true differentiator, where the professor, the teacher, the individual teaching the class can say, this is how it applies.
Yes.
This is the application of all the knowledge that's easy. Yeah. Now, how are you going to use that to better your life?
That's right.
And so people with true, authentic intelligence, wisdom, which really means they've used it, mm-hmm. right? They've seen it in application. That is going to become the difference making, on the planet. And so when you think about the evolution and where that's going for teachers and educators, is the ultimate imparting of wisdom human to human, connectedness between, the teacher and the learner? Is that where the value is? The actual connectedness between those two?
I just, from my opinion, I think that's a critical piece of it. Can they get content and learn with AI or online? Absolutely. Right. And some kids are very good at that. Some kids have a harder time with that. But without that connectedness and that someone helping you, when I taught history, like I said, a lot of kids think history is boring. I love history. So I taught it was, but we used to, when I was like, hey, thinking about history here, like, why is this significant? I had on the board, what's the significant or impact of what we're learning today? And that's like, what are we learning from this, right? Why was that significant? How's that shaped where we are today? Or so what about that? Like, what's the significance or impact? What's the cause and effect of this or what? We'd always learn something. I'd look at the students and say, so what about that? So what? What do you think? Well, take a side and tell me why. Because there's some issues you can learn from, right? And and then connecting it back to their experiences and now, why is this important now? You're living through history now, right? You don't think things are happening different than ever at any point in the world right now. What? Like, so yeah, I think you have to have that human connectedness and that human element there. It's what's going to motivate. It's what's going to inspire. And I think those people skills, those transcendent skills are going to be critical in the future for them. They just are. My ultimate goal, if I could do this, I would do it. I don't know if I could pull this off. And it would take a lot of educating parents and my district being cool with it though. But it even, we were even having a great conversation around grades, and what does a grade mean? And there's, I can arbitrarily throw out, extra credit and and whatever. And it's do this worksheet. Like, well, that's not learning, right? Like a grade is really a reporting of learning of what they know, right? But if we're developing learners, then shouldn't those grades kind of reflect the development there too? So, if I really had my dream, I'd love to see, if we're leaning into skills, I'd love to see at high school, it's, if we could just not really get rid of grades, but report them. And we're actually piloting and going to try this because, I'm this Mr. like try everything. But some schools are doing this around the country and doing it really well. And even here in our state where they're reporting the learned skill along with the learned content too, because a grade is really a reflection of what they've learned. But again, what's the skill? So if I could do it, I would love to. My dream would be that every student at my school graduates with a diploma, not just a diploma, and had got the best education we could provide for them as far as a diploma, but also a clear portrait or a portfolio, like a digital portfolio or some kind of a thing that they could showcase their development as a learner and highlighting those skills. Yeah, I earned a diploma. Cool. Lots of people have a diploma, right? And nobody's ever asked me like, oh, where'd you get your diploma? Or, what were your grades? That doesn't come up very often, right? I hire people all the time. I never ask them that. You got a degree? Bingo. Yep. Cool. Let's talk about your skills, right? It's immediately into that, like,
what can you do?
What can you do, right? And what's the value you bring here? And so my goal would be to be at a high school where every kid could graduate with a diploma and a portfolio of their development as a learner that showcased the skills that they learned that we were very intentional about teaching them. Look, Billy has a diploma. Billy also is an awesome problem solver. He knows how to collaborate in teamwork situations. Here's evidence of that. Teachers have signed off on that, whatever. Right? I got to get with someone. I'll get with you guys or whatever. We'll figure this out. We're gonna make an app. We're gonna do something because you've got to be able to. That's what I want to see when I hire people. That's what you want to see as a business owner. Like you're sitting there trying to hire this kid. You're like, okay, you have a high school diploma, cool. You're not digging into what they learned or about what the causes of the Civil War kid or whatever. It's like so. Yeah. But what they do with that information is like, why is that significant though, man? Right? And so what about that? And how do you work with that information? And what skills have you developed along the way? If they can work with groups of people and they're good collaborators and they're good, they're very emotional, resilient, and they're great problem solvers and they're flexible and they have good people skills. Man, that's a valuable kid. That's a valuable thing right there, right? And it's kind of a rare thing even, right? I see kids at school and I will always try to compliment them and their parents. I'm like, hey man, like I spoke with your kid the other day. They're looking me in the eye. We're having this great conversation. Like they got it. They're going to be fine. Don't worry about them, right? And they're just putting got to go to college and I'm like, they're going to be okay. They probably will go to college and that's a good thing. I'm not saying college is bad. I'm just saying they've got skills and they know how to get along with people and that is valuable for them. The world needs that and the world's going to pay them for those skills. So I would love to see where we can get into this. And like I said, some schools are doing this, but to report the learning with grades or a diploma, but then also showcase their development as a learner around those skills.
I got to say, too, Justin, so one of the things that really impressed me when I first met Justin, he was the assistant principal but he was over the problem kids, and he was over the ones that were at risk of being suspended from school. And Justin would call them in and say, listen, here's the deal. Here's what's led us to this. I've got two options for you. I can suspend you, and here's what all that means. Or I've got this course you can take after school. And it was a course not on history, or it was a course on character education. You can complete this 8-week course and learn these skills. You can do that, or you can be suspended. Which would you rather do? He was teaching them skills even then and bringing that in. Not learning skills, character education.
Build a better kid. Invest in them instead of
Yes.
punish them, right?
Yes.
It's back to that quote you're saying, like when they misbehave, we just naturally, consequence punish them. Sometimes they need a consequence. Like I'm not saying I'm anti-consequence here. Like that's it. Sometimes you get a ticket for speeding because you just need a reminder like, well, that sucked. I can't be speeding anymore. So, but you don't always. Sometimes you just need a warning and you're like grateful for that. And you're like, oh, I gotta slow down, right? And so that is restorative justice, kind of a big thing there. But it was so fun. And because a lot of times working with kids, it was a tough situation they were in. Sometimes they were looking at from, attendance consequences or behavior consequences. Look, we could do this, right? This isn't going to be fun for me or you. But there's a better way. We can invest in you as a leader. Or I love telling kids, like, I see the right ingredients here, right? I see some leadership skills, and I see that's why you're in trouble, because you were the leader in this nonsense that you were doing, right? Or whatever. And it's like, hey, this is going to work, right? But so we actually started that after school program. It's called School of Life, the School of Life Foundation. That was fun. I got with Jack Rolfe that runs that nonprofit foundation and brought him in. I saw his thing and I said, hey, what if we like traded the kids, because it was like, hey, there's this consequence and this is what it looks like, and it's a little gnarly and it's going to suck, right? It has to suck, or it's not, you don't get a speeding ticket and you're like, well, that wasn't a big deal. So you're back to speeding again, right? Totally. It's like, or you can do this course here. And we incentivize, it's free. And we're going to give you a quarter elective credit for this. And you're going to see a positive change here. And it was all those life skills like that we were just talking about. It was investing in the kids, building a better student, not just, you're a problem and here's the consequence and move on. It was, no. We could go that route. And I love that the kids had a choice. Yep. And they always, nearly always, I don't know that I can recall, maybe I had one or two, would choose, hey, thanks for treating me fairly. I wanted them to walk out of my office and felt like they'd been treated fairly and had a positive experience, right? Yeah. I had this awesome elementary school principal, big cowboy guy, scary, big cowboy guy. And I got called down to the office a lot too. And I remember at one point, like I was so nervous sitting in there, and I think he had a guitar in his office and would like play, he'd be like, be a good kid or something, like sing some song. And I'm like, and gave you like a pencil, and he'd be like, we're not going to have this problem again, are we, Justin? This isn't you. So, here's a pencil or a sticker or something, go be better. This isn't you. This is okay. And I was like, you got it, and it was awesome. Right. So I remember walking out there like, that was not what I thought it was going to be. That was pleasant. And I loved trying to flip that with kids a little bit. Like they know they're in trouble, right? They know something's coming, but to offer them some learning, some skill development, and invest in them and say, man, I see something better in you, right? Let's go this direction instead. But you get to choose. This is one or the other. They would always choose that. And we had some awesome data and some just big turnarounds with even things like GPA and attendance. And that wasn't even the point of the program. Yeah. It was just investing in a student. I had parents call me once and say, what are you doing in this program? They're making their bed every day. They're polite. They're talking to you. I was like, yes. And they're like, what is happening here? So it's great, right? So we run that program we did that for a long time. And that was that felt so good to offer something better than what they knew was going to happen or felt like was going to happen. And then I really didn't have problems with those kids after that, right? And had a positive connection with them instead of a negative thing. And they cared. That's back to like, hey, you're going to screw up. We got you here. right? Yeah. I run into kids here and there. I saw a kid at a wedding reception the other day, and he's like, "You remember me? Remember me?" I was like, "Man, honestly, I don't remember your name." And he reminded me, he was just like, "Oh yeah." He goes, "You suspended me. You suspended me once, right? You remember that?" And I was like, "Looks like you turned out great." I don't. I just looks like life's good. And they were great. He's fantastic. I'm like, yeah. I've been in high school too, right? You do stupid things sometimes, but to just be treated fair, be able to give them an option where let's just teach you better, right? Let's lean into teaching you some skills that are life skills that are going to help you be a better person. And we could do this consequence, but you're not going to fuss with that. And man, we saw just some cool results from that and big turnarounds with some students. There was one young lady I remember, her GPA was like her cumulative GPA was like 1.7, I think. And if I just printed her transcript and handed it to you and said, "You tell me when she did this course," you'd be able to look down and go, right there. Because she maintained a 3.5 honor roll or higher GPA after that. We didn't even talk about grades in that course. We talked about your attitude and goal setting and who you associate with and getting A's in life, right? That's the curriculum for this. But the ripple effect of that was she showed up. She knew we cared, and she put more effort into being a different, better person because she saw that we saw her that way, right? And it wasn't a consequence at all. It was an investment. She was they're thanking you after this, right? They're thanking you for the consequence that was, "Thanks for sending me to this 8-hour course." And then I'm like, "You got it." So, but you could literally just from her transcript go, that right there's where she did it. It was like she had doubled her GPA nearly, and it was that way from then till she graduated. And just a whole different kid, a whole different experience. So,
but it takes thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to see it.
And being willing to do something differently and for good, not just same old thing. You got to go to
Kids need it a little different now. Yeah.
Is it a course that's in curriculum now?
Yeah, we still do it.
Only if they're in trouble, or does every kid take it?
Well, that's what we would love to. We actually have a teacher that teaches a character ed course that's kind of taken some of that curriculum and just made it a class.
Yeah.
And it's really been popular the last couple of years. So we actually have 2 of those courses here. And I've said for years, I was like, this is a class everybody needs, man. This should be required, right? I'd love the state of Utah to say, yeah, that. So you need a class where you're, learning some of these life skills. That would be very, very valuable. So we, at schools, you're constantly moving that in and sneaking that in. As teachers, you're building in those learning moments. We talk about the power of moments in education, like right there's a teaching moment. This kid won't forget this pivotal moment. So as a teacher, you can pull them out and say, hey, here's what's happening. And that's how teachers are really good at that. There is so much good happening in public ed right now. I know there's maybe some, a lot of teacher burnout, or you'll hear in other places that, public ed's going downhill, and there's other things. Not here. No, it's really good. It's not perfect. We have our things to work on, our moments, but it's so good. It's really good. And we have just good people giving everything they've got and then some. But yeah, things like that are fun to try, fun to do, because kids just need it a little different now, and leaning into their strengths and, skill building for them is really, really, really important. You talk about one of my education heroes. His name was Sir Ken Robinson. He passed away a few years ago. If you go look up his TED Talk, he has 2 of the most watched, if not the most watched and downloaded TED Talks of all time. But he talks about education and leaning into kids' strengths and their personalities. And this reminded me of your story. He tells a story of, I think her name is Gillian Lynn. She founded the London Ballet or London Royal Ballet. And she couldn't sit still in school, and she was just constantly in trouble. So they kicked her out of school or whatever, brought her mom in and said, you need to take her to a doctor and see what's wrong with her, right? And, kind of relate to this. And kids are like, what's wrong with your kid? They can't focus and whatever. And, we see a lot of that now in ADD, and he goes, the doctor she said, I was so lucky. And he tells a story, and she says, I was so lucky that my mom and the doctor took her mom out of the room and said, he's telling the story and says, the doctor took my mom out of the room and turned the radio on and said, come here, I just want to watch her for a minute, watch her. And she was hearing this music, and she's immediately just up kind of, moving around with the music and whatever. And he told her mom, he said, just watch Jillian for a little bit. And the doctor said, she's not sick. She's a dancer. Go put her in a dance school. And she said, luckily my mom listened, and she put me in a dance school, and she founded this amazing world famous ballet company and was the main choreographer in Cats and some of these big things. But he goes, nowadays we'd probably medicate the kid, tell him something's wrong with him and give him a prescription. Yep. And she said, thank goodness that my mom listened, and I had a doctor that said, there's nothing wrong with that kid. She's a dancer. You need to put her with, she said, I was with people like me that had to move, that couldn't sit still, that understood. And so kids need, you got to lean into what they do well and find it, and they'll tell you, they'll let you know, right? And you can make deals with them if you need to, and just say, gosh, you're so good at this, and I need you to do that good, right?
Justin, you're landing this whole point right now. You know, I mean, we are a company that really has a backbone of, in the industry of mental health, we are called medication management.
Awesome.
Just think of that term. Right? The whole healthcare industry says you guys do mental health medication management. And in reality, we are literally shouting from the rooftops, especially to parents and educators, we are not medication management. We are trying to educate as the best form of mental health care.
Yeah,
it is education.
I love that.
It is, your kid doesn't have da-da-da-da-da. They just learn different. They're a dancer. Right. They're a drummer. Right. They're
Don't tell them they're sick. They're not. There's nothing wrong with them.
They need to.
They're actually good.
Even if it takes some medication to bridge the gap.
And that has its place for sure.
Yeah.
Not saying anything against that.
No, and there's a place for it. But this idea of try to understand a little bit more about the child. They may learn different. They may, whatever that is. And so, I mean, when I see what's going on in education, I salivate. One, it's complex because there's so many ways to get through it all. And I think that there are kids who are taking advantage of that, the easy way. But I also think that it's cool because it's starting to focus on the one.
Yeah. How
do you really treat the one, educate the one, empower the one? And I just love that concept of how can we adapt education to have better outcomes, instead of try to force everybody into the box. How do we try to tailor, what we're
and
doing?
And the education that's a good point too. I feel like we have to succeed in spite of the system of education, not because of it, right? Because the system is just kind of designed, you go along and you learn these things, but kids are going to do it different. They need to do it different. And there are some brilliant kids out there that they just can't do it this way, but they'll do it this way. And to educate, that's such a great point, to educate the student and the parents on what that looks like, because the parents, everyone wants them to succeed in the system, but you kind of have to succeed in spite of it.
Yeah.
It's okay to get out of it and think differently, right? Okay, your kid's going to need it this way, and that's good, right? We're not going to punish the kid. Let's invest in them and do it this way. You don't need to, you may not need this, but we'll go this route right here, right? You can't sit still. Cool. Let's put you in dance school or whatever it is, right? So that really is important, I think, and I saw families really hungry for that learning and that education and that having a different mindset of, there's nothing wrong with you. You just need it. You need it differently, right? And flipping that switch in their head of just don't label yourself. Kids are so hard on themselves, and it's so, and I hate seeing that, I can't do this or I can't do, no. You can do anything you want, right? I've seen some brilliant kids at my school that are really struggling, with autism and different things, and they just have a hard time with certain things in classes, and they go to other classes and teachers will kind of figure out, okay, this is how this kid learns. And man, they just blow your mind. They're brilliant kids. Totally. So sometimes we kind of educate the natural geniuses and the curiosity out of kids, and that's not all right? So they don't need it by batching them, and it's very, you got to lean into their strengths, and every kid is a natural genius and a natural artist and a natural scientist or whatever. They're really smart at it, and good teachers can educate the individual kid and not just, okay, this is what everybody's doing. But it's not easy. It's challenging.
It's so hard. I mean, we started off with you describing 1,200 students. Well, how do you educate 1,200? You have to have a system and processes that allow, it to just happen. And yet kids come along, who are unique, have their own quirkiness, and how do you adjust the 1,200 to adapt to one, unique situation? So, I mean, kudos to you, for trying to figure it all out, but the outcomes of which are, I mean, you're building humans. I feel that way. Moms and educators, like they're going to heaven. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Their reward is, just significant. So, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the accolades and the thank yous, but it is the teachers, man. I wish I could have them all here or show you pictures of them or have them no, it's right here, right? Like I'm blessed to be the leader there, a person that has a say in who we hire and how we the direction of our mission and what we're trying to get to and trying different things. But man, we got good people. We got good people in education. Yeah. They are the people day in and day out in the trenches, doing the work, working with kids and doing amazing things and spending the time and doing what it takes. I told back to the mission statement when we changed that, I said, hey, teachers, that's a commitment to student learning. That is whatever it takes. And I email that to our parents every beginning of the year. And I tell the teachers that, when we first come back, I'm like, I emailed that out to our teachers and said, or all our parents and said, this is what you can expect here of us.
Yeah.
Is it whatever it takes, commitment to student learning, right? And helping your kids feel like they belong. And they all are all in for that. That is who we are and what we do. And they do that.
It's awesome.
And so it's easy for me as a leader to just, you hire the right people, you set that expectation. They all believe in that and they go do it. And they do it at 5 o'clock at night. They do it on the weekends. They do it early in the morning. They do it all throughout the day with difficult kids, with super smart kids, with challenging situations like you wouldn't believe, right? Had a young lady just last week at school who had gone home at lunch and really been struggling and had taken a whole bunch of pills, came back to school and grabbed her teacher and said, she went into class and went like this to her teacher and said, hey, come here, and went out in the hall. She said, can I talk to you out in the hall? She burst into tears and she said, I told her what happened. I just took a bunch of pills. She said, and just started crying and said, I don't know what to do. I don't want to hurt myself, but I just did this. And that teacher just immediately walked her down and we were, right on it and got her some help. And she's doing good now, but she's been really struggling with this. But that teacher wasn't even, I looked at the teacher and I said, thank you for being a trusted adult in this kid's life where they feel like they could come and say, I need to tell you something, What if you didn't? And she said, I didn't know I was. She said, she had built that relationship, not even realizing that she could connect with this student in that way. She goes, she hasn't done things like this before, really. So I was just like, well, she did today. And thank goodness that you've done something here where she felt safe with you. Absolutely. Back to that, you belong. She felt like she belonged in your classroom. And that was a full commitment to whatever it takes. Anyway, they're doing a great job with that. So
belong, education, and skills. I'll never forget this.
Yes, yeah.
Belong, education, and skills. I mean,
it's the right ingredients, right?
Yeah, I mean that likely. If you ask that young woman, what did you learn? Here she would probably say, that I belong. I mean, she told a teacher what she had just done, the scariest thing.
Yeah, I don't know that she could even tell me what happened with chemistry with the last lab that they were in, but she said it was clearly, and I told the teacher that, I said, clearly she felt safe in your classroom, felt like she belonged with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, and it was great. It was great. So
going forward, as LÉVO gets started, we have not really done this formally throughout the state, but I'll just tell you because you're here and, you're a principal and a leader. LÉVO wants to feature teachers. So however we can do that, be awesome. Supportive. If that is literally, in social media or putting them on a podcast or storytelling, but our goal, LÉVO in Latin means to lift, and that is also in education. So whatever we can do to invest in featuring teachers or being supportive in schools and I mean, it's personal to us. It is to our company, but it is to me personally as the owner. So
Great.
yeah, whatever we can
We'll
do.
take you on that. Yeah, that's great. I think they're the quiet heroes day in and day out for sure. So yeah, they need, and they don't like recognition, but I buy them sugar cookies every now and then and pat them on the back. Keep going, guys. We make popcorn on Fridays. So
Yeah.
But yeah, they need that. That's the motivation that keeps them going a lot of times. So
Well, they also need belonging.
Yeah, they do.
And
Yep.
and education.
Yeah.
And they also need skills. And so that cyclical process, in organizational development is huge. So that's how we feel we can lift the industry and lift education, is to try to give kudos here and there.
Awesome.
So
Totally.
keep us in the loop, whatever we can do. And these guys are leading it here locally. So thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know a more meaningful dialogue we've had with an educator. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was fun for me too. So thanks,
for
Arden.
what you do, man.
The Lift and Make Lighter podcast is brought to you by LÉVO, a primary mental health care provider. At LÉVO, we specialize in comprehensive mental health assessments, diagnoses, and treatments for all ages. For more information, visit levomind.com. That's levomind.com.